All right, we are live.
And we are recording. From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American
Why
Grief
relate
Center.
to his sheer perversity?
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop up your head.
And welcome to the American Grief Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Tonight we have many exciting things to talk about. Keep you on the edge of your listening seat.
What's the Hellraiser quote?
We have so many things to show you.
Okay.
That was the somebody did the funniest meme when who's the guy, the Westboro Baptist Church, the old guy that founded it. You know, people protest the funerals. God hates everyone. Yeah, someone had like Pinhead, and I forget what the guy's name was. Damn it! But it said yes. Now that you're here, we have so many things to show. It's like that's a great send off for that guy. That's a weird bunch too. I mean, obviously weird, but I like the one that defected.
Was that the one that like Kevin Smith interviewed?
Yeah, Kevin Smith and Sam Harris and I don't know if Rogan.
I think Rogan. Yeah.
Yeah,
because sometimes like I think Seth Rogen and Kevin Smith like talk occasionally, and like the guests come over at his show because that's how Macaulay Culkin ended up on his show.
Oh, you mean Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you said Seth
Oh,
Rogen.
Seth. Yeah, yeah. Seth Rogen's podcast. He gets high and talks about MMA too.
Yeah, from a different standpoint, different point of view. But yeah, so that was yeah, the defector from the family is pretty interesting and smart. Like that's the you know the scary thing about those Westboro Baptist people? They're not dumb. Most of them are lawyers. That's how they get away with all that crap they do. This girl, I mean, when you're in that kind of cloistered environment, and then you can talk to Sam Harris like intelligently and even say, well, no, Sam, I think you're wrong about that, and then back your points up, because there's nothing casual about conversation with that guy. And when you can go back and forth with him and pretty much come out on top of some of the arguments, it's like, oh, those people are scary smart. Why are they using their power for evil? But yeah, that's an interesting group. I think that what's the longest their websites lasted in the last 2 years? Like 4 days. I don't know. It's constantly under attack. The service attacks they do on it or whatever.
Denial of service attacks.
Yeah, I don't even
DDoS attacks.
I don't even know if that's a thing anymore.
Oh yeah. It's just you just
Overload their server. Somehow.
Yeah, because well, how the internet works is there's a socket you have to connect to a server with. And there's a finite limit to how many sockets can be open at one time.
Oh, okay.
So if you just like connect to it and then like keep connecting to it and open up every socket, nothing can get through.
So they set up like dumb bots just to reinitiate over and over.
Yep.
Until it's all that. Okay.
Yep.
I couldn't do that, but at least I have a crude understanding of how it works.
One of the big DDoS attacks happened like a year ago. One way they got their what they call a bot network, which basically like you kind of affect other computers or you set up other computers to do that kind of thing. But one of the things they found out there was a security camera that had a flaw and it was like connected to the internet, and like it hadn't been updated. Like the people that made the camera stopped updating it and made new stuff that they wanted to sell. But like everybody already had those old cameras and they weren't going to update it and they weren't going to buy new ones. Or there was no update and they weren't going to buy new ones. So they had like one of the biggest part of the attack is like these people just hijacked all these cameras all over the country, which is like, like thousands or 1 million of them or whatever fucking thing. And then like had it open up like Amazon or whatever all at the same time.
Wow. Somebody found that.
Yeah.
Somebody just like, I know something we can do. That's scary.
That's one of those what do they call it, like day zero bugs.
Yeah.
Like the CIA has like a litany of that stuff. Like because somebody found out, cause I guess it had a cryptic name to it, like the angels are watching us or some shit like that. Like it got out there, but like the CIA had figured out like Samsung TVs, like they figured out how to hack it and just didn't tell anybody, so they could spy on people.
Nice.
But then people found out that they knew there was a security flaw.
That's when it becomes a problem.
But they're like, no, we're just gonna spy on other countries. We're good.
Somebody releases something, everyone needs to look shocked at the same time. Like, huh?
But that stuff happens all the time, like in private sector too, where somebody will just like find a bug and keep it a secret, and then basically, essentially blackmail the company into giving them money so they can pretend to fix the problem. It's like, hey, you got a problem here.
Yeah. That's well, that's like, because they did this report on CBS, and I remember I read about this in Command and Control, and then I like knew it as soon as they said it. I was like, yeah, that's absolutely true, because they were showing how our Minuteman missiles and all the software, it's like giant floppy disks, like the ones as big as pizza boxes.
Yeah.
And now the Air Force is kind of in the business of manufacturing that equipment because you can't buy it anywhere else. And the lady was like, why are we using such outdated crap to run our nuclear missiles? And he says, you don't want anyone to hack into these computers. You can't hack these systems. They don't speak a language that really exists anymore. And they're only linked by phone. It's phone. There's no data going back and forth between the silos and shit. And he said, this is the reason why we don't, because she was like implying like, oh God, we're so underfunded. It's like, I can't, well, no, this is not the reason why. The reason why is you can't hack these systems because they're antiques.
Yeah.
And if you tried to feed commands into it, it would just shut down. There's no way. They absolutely understand what it does, and they've understood it since the 80s, and they've never updated it because it's too dangerous, because then you get something like the Whopper going on. So you still physically have to get someone on the phone or some kind of technique where you communicate, and it's all that jargon, whatever they say, Romeo, Alpha, Echo, 29, verified, and then they press a button and turn a key in the missile. Everyone dies, but
nothing happened, sir. Oh shit, our job's all a sham.
This has all been a lie.
Who's running this experiment?
But yeah, I mean, I see that at work. I mean, the computers we use are Unix servers. I've told you about this before, right? Where when you actually call up to make a change in the system or adjust inventory or something, you call up and it emulates a green screen monitor from the 80s because they've never updated it, because you can't really, it's very hard to break into it. And it's very centralized too, because I remember when the world headquarters caught on fire, all of a sudden we couldn't print tags or do anything, and everyone's like, what's going on? Everything's going to stop. We can't tag any of this stuff. Like, oh, there's a big fire at world headquarters. They shut the computers down. It's like, oh, well, I guess are we going to stop? No, we're going to write the stuff out by hand.
Then you know it's working, because you've completely avoided the purpose of the internet to begin with, and that if something breaks down, everything else picks up right from the top.
Yes, that's why you know it's working. Well, remember I told you about the lines. Like, they're automated to a point, and then when the car or the whatever moves into the next process, it plays a tone, and the gate opens and it lets it into the next section, because those two sections are not physically connected by anything.
Yeah.
They're so fearful of someone putting a virus and just shutting down their car plant that they use tone, because you can't transmit viruses through horn sounds. It listens for certain tones and then it lets it go. I mean, I guess you could program the tones to do something, but
yeah, you could do that thing where he opens up the door in War Games.
Yeah. But
you'd have to physically be there.
Yeah. Well, this is a 21st century, fully modern auto facility, and they have security like that built in, wrapped around it, because they're so fearful that everyone's trying to fuck them at all times.
Well, they are. So.
Well, and you hear that and you're like, wow, they're paranoid. And then they catch some guy going back to China with a hard drive full of all our blueprints for cars for the next 10 years. And it's like, oh, they have every reason. I still don't know.
They hired somebody to be professionally paranoid for them.
Well, that was the one where the FBI set up cameras and stuff and didn't even tell him because they knew that the guy was doing this because they were watching his internet traffic, and they just went and set up cameras in offices clandestinely. And then after they arrested the guy, they came back and gave him their hard drive. And it's like, is this information valuable? When they plugged it in, and they're like, fuck yeah, it's valuable. You can't put a price on what that might be worth. And it's like, we caught this guy trying to get on a plane in Metro Airport. Had 2 of these in a suitcase. And they're like, what the fuck? But it was people in the company that were colluding with him for money to do it. So a lot of people went to prison. I think one guy got 25 years to life for that. It was like serious fucking prison time. Now, they'll probably plea that down, but
Yeah.
I was surprised when I read in the paper what the final verdict was. Like, wow, that's tough. But, you know, undermining our nation's economy is if you're going to roll hard and do that, they're going to have to respond to it. But yeah, I can't imagine where in industries where like computers and software makers, it's like that must just be constant. They must have, you know, for every 10 people working on something, they must have one guy doing security or more, and even he can't keep up.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard thing to do. I mean, Microsoft seems to be pretty good with it, and they have to deal with a lot of shit.
Oh yeah,
because their stuff's everywhere, and there's so many people that are attacking it. Because that's why I always, you know, people talk about Apple. It's like, it's always safe. No one attacks it. Yeah, it's because it's not.
10% of the market.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of. They attack iTunes a lot, I guess, though.
iTunes and a lot of iPhones, though. That's the new thing. They're going after iPhones because that's so
Something's
many.
wrong with my iPhone for sure.
And what else was it? Fuck. What was I talking about? Yeah, Microsoft. But yeah, there's always companies that just see it because that shit's expensive, and it's you're trying to fight off with something that might be true or might not be true. You're trying because if you're just like solving the problem after the problem happens, then you're not doing your job as like, you know, as securities. Like, you have to solve a problem that hasn't happened yet.
Well, they wiped out the stock exchange. Like, oh, who did it? Thanks. It's really going to help us now that our economy is destroyed.
But yeah, there's like a lot of communities out there. Because there's legitimate, like Nintendo. Like they had I think like last year or a couple years ago, their 3DS got completely fucking hacked to shit. To the point where you could just hack the system like through the YouTube app, the Netflix app.
Okay.
If you turn on the Netflix app and then like interrupted something that was loading, you could basically have access to the BIOS, and then you could just install anything you wanted onto the 3DS. And then from there's something you could hack or spoof some sort of content ID, and you could just download anything straight from Nintendo. And it would basically just say it was bought already, and you just download whatever you wanted.
Wow.
You just downloaded everything for free.
That's like hundreds of millions of dollars going out the door.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure how many people did it, but they did. At some point, they had like a powwow, and they started putting out basically like bounties, like hack our system, tell us, we'll give you money.
Do it.
And now they're trying to do that with the Switch, where somebody got it with the Switch, they can install Linux onto a Switch.
Okay.
Now, what you do from there, who fucking knows? But somebody can put Linux on Switch. I think Nintendo has the capability to just like shut it off, like, oh, this system, we've detected this, and then like we'll no longer like access to this system is now revoked. So they do stuff like that now.
I don't know. Some people are so smart. They can figure stuff like that out.
And then like Sony, they got hacked like a few years ago. It was a pretty long time ago. And a lot of hash passwords got out. Like not passwords, just like the jumbled thing that you can't decrypt.
Okay.
So like nothing got out, but like it was like emails and like the last four of your credit card, stuff like that, which is not good, but that wasn't just like here's their credit card information, like because they don't get that anyways. But like something about their system is so agent, because like this happened with Microsoft is people signed up with the 360, and at first you couldn't change your screen name. It was just that was locked in. There's no way to do it. But now they made that so you can. But with Sony, ever since they created like the Sony network, you have not been able to change your ID at all. Because the cost of trying to change that basically means they'd have to like rewrite the entire system, because however their database works doesn't have like alternate names associated with your like the primary key of your account, like the thing it looks at all the time. It can't like look in different directions. It's just, all right, this is what this account is, but this is what we want to show up on the screen. Like something how they set it up, like they can never change it.
Wow, that sounds a little short-sighted. I think they would have looked into that a little more, but who knows?
Well, no, because like back when whenever Sony started connecting to the internet, which at the end of the PS2, but definitely during the PS3, that stuff wasn't really around, especially for consoles. Like no one would think that anyone would want to change their name ever. Like, why would you?
Yeah.
But then it got so big that it's like, no, that's what people want now, because there's so many different services where you have, an associated ID name and all the shit that comes with that now. So.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying is we really just need the EMP. Start over.
No. Well, if you want a new screen name for your Sony account, then yeah, you'll need the EMP.
Yeah.
And then a couple, in 50 years of civilization coming back, and then you get your new Sony ID.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah, it's so many things going on. World is too complicated. Well, I was talking to someone today. The city of Ann Arbor. They their water is going to end up being poisoned because they had all those research companies, medical research companies, and science research companies. This was years ago, and they were generating. It's basically their water is it's going to be contaminated with dioxin because these companies that were doing research, and this was a long time ago, in Ann Arbor, they just dug like holes, a couple 1,000 feet or whatever in the ground, and just poured all this waste material from all their research and stuff in the holes and just capped them up. Well, now it's polluting the Huron River, and there's a few things they can do. Because see, we're on Detroit here, so like we're fine, because for some reason like the Detroit River, you wouldn't think it'd be good, but it's like some of the best water in the state, because that's what they switched Flint off of, and that's what killed or fucked all those people up in Flint, because they went from the Detroit River to the Flint River, and the Flint River was so acidic from years and years and years of waste being dumped into it that it ate the lead out of the pipes, and then people were just, it was like drinking a cup of lead, that really screwed people up in Flint. Well, in Ann Arbor, these well caps of dioxin they put in the ground however many years ago, it's polluting the Huron River. So they got a few choices. They can switch over, which would be building a whole new system of piping water into Ann Arbor's got a lot of people, and it's like 250,000 people. Or they can build this massive. They have a water treatment plant they're looking at, but everyone's property taxes are going to go up significantly if they add. Ann Arbor has really high property taxes anyway. I mean, they might have to add like a city sales tax, a city income tax, and just to pay for this giant facility. And so I was talking to this guy about it, and I went and looked some of it up. And one of the biggest problems is the population of Ann Arbor has increased by like 24% in the last 10 years. So what they've done is they've just built out and out and out, and now they're running into these problems because when they were doing different construction and whatever and building new roads, they disturbed these wellheads full of this poison, and it started to seep into the soil now and leak out into the river. And it's like, wow, you just never know what time bombs are waiting.
It's Gomorrah and Ann Arbor.
Well, it's just like the stuff in California with all the houses getting burned down. Yeah, they've added 10 million people in 15 years. They have to live somewhere.
Yeah.
So they building out and out further into the desert, and then it all burns to the ground. And everyone's like, "Oh, this is horrible. It's global warming." It's like, no, you added the population of a mid-sized American state to your state in less than 20 years.
Yeah, that was a story that came out. There was a guy, like his tire blew, and got in a car wreck, and like the sparks from the rim of the tire started a fire.
Yes.
And that turned into a giant blaze. Like, no way that guy could control that.
Yeah, you didn't even think. I mean, just think of the number of people that throw lit cigarettes out the window and stuff. It's like it's just bound to happen. But yeah, this is the problem we're running into, and as we get closer to 1 billion people in this country, it's only going to get worse. If that really ever happens, I don't know. They say those trends are starting to reverse now.
Oh, we're only at what, 250 million?
350 million.
Oh, okay.
But it's 1 billion by 20. Well, the last time they checked, it said it'd be 1 billion by like 2060 or something.
Yeah.
But that's based on growth and all kinds of variables that you can't.
All this wondrous famine on its way.
Well, I mean, we're building walls now. We're doing all this shit. So yeah,
We'll get that blight from shit. What's that? Jonathan Nolan space movie, or Christopher Nolan?
Interstellar.
Yeah, Interstellar blight.
Yeah, just Dust Bowl days times 10. Dust Bowl America. Yeah, if that ever happens again, that would fuck the world. It would be like hard times for some farmers in the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. That would mean like, oh, there's like 1 billion people aren't going to eat now, because that's one of our biggest exports is food. Believe me, we're going to feed ourselves first. America is very good at is feeding ourselves.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Hmm?
Oh, go ahead.
So I found a new gun channel on YouTube.
What's this one called?
I'm not sure if it has a name. It's just a dude. His name's Paul Harrell,
Okay.
and
How
he's
do you spell
Harrell, and he's like the Mr. Rogers of gun YouTube channels.
it? Okay.
He's like former military. I think he's also still like in the reserves, and he has access to like this giant range. He does some interesting one. Like the one big video I watched is he did a breakdown of like the 1981 like Miami shooting, where like where a bunch of cops were trying to like capture these guys, and they basically like 8 cops got shot by like one dude with like a mini 14.
Okay.
A lot of weird. Yeah, there's a guy like the best shooter in the bunch. Like he had I think he had a 9mm with like 16 rounds in each clip, and or not clip, a magazine, and like emptied 3 magazines at the guy and missed him, and he was like the best shot. But the thing was, like when he crashed his car, he had like his glasses on like a bench seat in the car he was in, and like lost his glasses, and then that's why he emptied all the rounds he had at the guy and missed him, and then got shot to death. And then everybody else had like 357s, and one guy had a shotgun who he ended up having to fire one-handed at one point.
Yeah.
Tucked behind a car, and he was like, I think he was the one that actually stopped. Well, one guy got a shot. He like basically shot the guy in the armpit, and essentially it was a fatal shot. It just the guy hadn't died yet. It was going to take him a while to die, but he was going to die.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one that basically Well, if the FBI after that, what did I read about that? Because that was the one where these cops were just finally like, look, we're outgunned. These guys have way more powerful, because they were like, a lot of the guns they used in the Miami shootout were either 9mm that were not hollow pointed, which that's a super fast round, and if it's not hollow pointed, if you fire it at close range, it just flies right through you, unless it hits your heart and lungs on the way through. It's not going to do a whole lot. And then they had 38 caliber revolvers, service type revolvers, and but anyway, there's a cool.
Well, I think that might be a different shooting, but
okay. Well, this is the 1986 Miami shootout.
Okay, is that the same one? Because that's the one where they end up developing like the what is it, 357 Smith and Wesson and the 40 caliber.
40 caliber came out of it. The 9mm hollow points started to come into use.
Because like a lot of what he was talking about in this video is one thing they changed. It was like one, well, you switch from a revolver, but also there was a guy how he had been trained, and this guy, he's old enough, he was trained that way with a revolver, and like there's a point where they teach you how to like it was like a drill where you put two in case somebody's like coming up on you, and then you fire, and something about like how they trained him with the revolver, it just wasn't practical.
Yeah.
And so like one guy, he just got shot in the head while I was reloading his revolver. Yeah. And like one thing is they just had like a pocket full of shells. He didn't have a speed loader or anything like that. And they had speed loaders at that time, and they were trained in them, but for some reason they just didn't have them at that point.
Yeah, this led to the FBI making. I remember they radically changed their. They said, okay, we're using 10mm now. That's what the French use. That's what we're going to use. And 10mm are fucking ferocious. I mean, they have a lot of knockdown power, but they're really hard to control. And then they, but yeah, this led to the 40 caliber and a bunch of other guns.
Or 357 SIG.
Yeah, but really it led to a lot of better training.
Yeah.
And also a lot of AR-15s in the trunks on.
Yeah.
Raids and shootouts. It's like and shotguns.
Yeah, and shotguns. Yeah,
shotguns are your most potent anti-people weapon in a normal drug shootout in Miami. Best weapon.
Well, it's also just like, so they're going after two guys, and the one guy, and they were talking, and like the thing is, it's the one guy, like I can't remember what weapon he had. He had like a MAC-10 or something like that. But everything he fired missed. Like he didn't hit one cop. The other guy like fucking shot all those cops.
It was like Dirty Harry. He just hung it out behind his shoulder and killed him.
But a Mini 14, like that's a rifle. So
yeah, that's a Ruger. It's an assault rifle, but doesn't have a pistol stock, I think is the difference with those. You hold it like an actual rifle, like it doesn't have the pistol grip.
I can't remember. I can't remember.
Let me look it up and see what guns were used, because I'm sure there's a website.
Yeah, last time they have a Mini 14 in a video game, which doesn't mean it's accurate, but I remember it having kind of like a foldable stock and kind of a pistol grip on it, but I'm not sure. There could be many versions.
Yeah, there's variation. Yeah, he had a Mini 14, which is a 223 Remington. And then a 357 Magnum. One guy had a shotgun. And then the other guy had a 357 Magnum. God, some of those guys got shot 12 times. Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's a...
But anyways, yeah, so Paul Harrell, he does this breakdown, and he has a very weird like sense of speaking.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of like so that's why I compare him to Mr. Rogers, where he's like, he doesn't swear, he's not energetic, he's just, I'm gonna tell you about these guns. And then he has like weird pauses where he kind of like inhales with his eyes. I don't know how to explain it.
I have to watch this guy. I like the people that are not really ready for prime time.
Well, it's not that he's like unprofessional or anything. It's just how he does it, and he'll like throw to himself. So like he'll like kind of like look over and then like cut to him like looking at the camera, and then that pause he'll like look back, and then there's like receive the look back and then look back at the camera and then continue on with it, because but yeah, there's like a lot of different points on this range, and like he kind of goes through every situation, and he'll replicate it himself. A lot of things he'll increase the distance, being that he's not actually shot at, to try to better compare what actually happened with him not being shot at. But it's like, I'll give it a distance to give it more like, to spread the aim, I guess, or whatever. And
increase the difficulty.
But yeah, he seems to know what he's doing. And I watched the high point video he did, the high point 45, because I always just love to get the impressions on the high point, because it's just, it's just fucking hard to work at, or hard to look at, but it just works. So it's like, it's hard to complain.
Just a block of metal that shoots bullets.
The thing I thought was weird about it is I didn't realize that thing doesn't have a slide release on it. So that's why it always looked fucking weird.
Yeah, there's nothing to it. They did no frills.
But I was like, well, so that's why it was always like hard to like, put the slide back, because you physically had to do it. There was no slide release. And it has a magazine safety.
Okay.
So you can't fire the gun if there's no magazine in it.
Oh, yeah, there's some other guns that do that.
But also you can't take it apart if there's no magazine in it, or something like that.
Wow.
Which that's more unsafe.
Yeah, that's like, let's put bullets in this thing and start messing with the slide.
So yeah, like that one was pretty interesting, because that one's he's not telling a story or anything like that. He's just shooting the gun. There's also a fucking bizarre part where he's like dressed up as a pimp shooting it. And then another one where he's like dressed up as like a redneck shooting at it. And it's like, it doesn't matter how it looks as long as it fires.
That is true.
And there's stuff where like he fired, because he had it was 1911 Colt. What are they called? I can't remember what it's called, but it was a 1911.
Yeah.
And so he was doing a comparison between it, and obviously with the Colt he was shooting better, but it was a smaller spread, and then with the high point it was a wider spread, but it was still like it was hitting the target. So he's like, and he was like, now that doesn't mean that this gun can't shoot well. It just means I can't shoot it well.
Yeah.
Somebody out there is just a whiz with a high point.
I'm sure there are.
And I've never fired one myself, so it's hard to, I guess, shit on it. But that just looks, every time you see somebody do it, it just seems good. But that guy, he wasn't. A lot of people when they fire it, like Hickok 45 and Demolition Ranch, like they're like visibly like, or they're putting on a show of being disgusted. But it's like, oh, I guess it works, whatever. This guy didn't have that kind of prejudgment when he's just doing the test, doing the work, and then just putting it out there. And he never swears or anything like that, and just like, all right, kids, let's compare these two handguns.
Well, not only do they make high points, are they weird looking, but they're also made out of the metal parts in them. A lot of them are made out of zinc alloy and aluminum alloy, which is like not. Oh, it's a Serbian design. Okay, well that explains a lot.
Well, like a lot of them they had, like I said, the breech blowback design or whatever, where the barrel is locked to the frame, and so that somehow it makes it cheaper, but the receiver is usually like abnormally heavy.
Yeah.
So it must be some cheap heavy metal they're using. Because like a PPK, like you'd think, because that's like way smaller than a Glock 17, but it weighs like almost like a couple or like 3 ounces more than like a Glock 17. But Glock 17 is made out of high polymer plastic, most of it, but still it's like it's almost a significantly larger gun than a PPK, but their PPK is heavier. So.
Yep. Oh yeah, they have some interesting guns out there. So yeah, I want to check that guy out just to see what that's all about.
Yeah, watch the if you want to get the full weirdness, that Miami shootout one I think is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he does a lot of like standard videos where he's not like throwing to himself or telling a story. He's just, but also that high point one where he fucking dresses up as a pimp and shoots is fucking stupid.
Was he shooting it sideways?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, that's always the best way to do. I tried that once. That's terrible.
And then he had like a fucking, he had like a crate of pistol holsters. Personally owned pistol holsters and like stuff from the army and all that stuff too. It's like, oh, I recognize that. And he uses like every pistol holster to show off how nothing fits a high point. Like you have to get, if you want a whole pistol holster for your high point, you have to get a high point specific pistol holster because it just doesn't fit in anything.
Yeah, usually there's not a big demand for those either because they're held inside the waistband. I think you can get one of those for like $200 or
Yeah, less than that. Used, yeah, less than that. But
No.
apparently their carbine is also cheap but well made, or at least it works pretty well.
Yeah.
They kind of make it look like it's like from Starship Troopers, but it works.
Yeah. They got some weird stuff out there. There's other companies that just have. What's that off-brand of? It's basically South America's Beretta. Is it Taurus?
I know they make those. They make a lot of revolvers. I know that.
Yeah.
Because there's like the Taurus Judge and stuff like that. It's like a handgun that shoots shotgun shells, 410 shotgun shells.
Yep. Yeah, I saw that evaluated once on a YouTube video because they had the Judge and then they have the Smith and Wesson came out with one of those called the Governor. They have P-rated defensive rounds for the 410 rounds now for that, which is the guy was shooting those and it's like, yeah, that'd kill someone, but this is a hell of a gun to hold on to and shoot. It's just a big gun. It just has that huge cylinder in it because you can also shoot like 45 long Colts or something through it. It's either or.
Yeah. And then I was a company I was looking at the other day because they make a couple things. It's called Standard Manufacturing, which is a really boring name, but
yeah, it's not any like General Products.
They make a pump action double barrel shotgun that's pretty weird. It looks like something out of Doom, and you load the shotgun shells like in behind the pistol grip. There's like
okay, Halo style or something.
Yeah. So basically, it's like two trigger pulls, like the left barrel, the right barrel, then a pump, and then it loads two shells when you pump.
That's a good idea.
Yes. And then I guess I'll get off on another tangent. I'll have to remember Standard Manufacturing. So yeah, I saw another demolition video where he had an Ithaca shotgun, which was a company in Ithaca, New York that made shotguns, and this was a pump action shotgun that how about they call it a feature? I'm not sure, or just maybe a safety malfunction called ram firing. So basically, if you held the trigger down every time you punched a shotgun, it would fire it.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Not with a specific model before, but yeah.
Yeah, it was the Ithaca pump action shotguns. Like they used it in like Vietnam, like the Navy SEALs use it because you can, because the guy timed himself and he fired that faster than any other shotguns. He even had that double barrel pump action shotgun. He fired like 8 rounds out of the Ithaca shotgun faster than that one because it was like 2.5 seconds. He emptied 8 rounds.
A lot of shotgun shells.
Yeah.
How was his shoulder after that?
I think he was firing birdshot on that. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Standard Manufacturing. Another video I saw was Hickok 45 was reviewing because they came out with a single action Army Colt replica.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be, you know, it's like it's almost $2,000 for the fucking thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But it's like super well made. There's something, the case hardening on it, where it kind of looks weird. It looks, but they replicate it as best they could because it's some weird chemical process, and they have to give it a look. You can't just like paint it on. It's a chemical process with metal hardening.
Yeah.
But the thing I was like impressed about it is that every screw on it was facing in the same direction.
Oh wow. That means it's hand.
I'm not sure that's worth $2,000, but that was a nice attention to detail. Because he had like 4 other ones on the table when he was doing it. It's like, oh, here's all my other single action Colts.
That's a cool looking gun. I'm on their website right now. How they replicated that metal finish. That is cool.
Yeah, it was supposed to be. Yeah, people talk about like that's one of the best handguns ever made.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it'd be nice to shoot once just to see how it is. But that's always like the guns that people use to like twirl and shit like that. But
yeah, cowboy shooters.
Yeah. I also because that's what Hickok used to do at one point. One of his competing things to do is it was like it was cowboy shooting, but like 3-gun and cowboy shooting, which is slightly different. And you have to use those revolvers and like an old double barrel shotgun and like a lever action rifle.
Oh, okay. 3-gun Wild West style.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. All the damn screws go the same direction. I'm looking at it right now. It's like, that's nuts.
There was I can't remember the reason why, but he explained it at some point. But for safety reasons, you only put 5 rounds in those.
Yeah, because the firing pin can come forward on you. You carry it on a full. Well, I mean, you have to rack that hammer back every time you shoot it.
Yeah.
Firing pin's going to be forward. So, yeah, if you loaded all 6 of those and slammed it in there and it hits the firing pin, it's going to go off. Yeah, you carry it on empty. I've shot the Ruger Vaquero, which is a version of that, not as nice as that gun. They are fun to shoot. They are weirdly ergonomic for something that's like 200 and some years old. It really actually works. But they're not, I forget what kind of bullets, ammo they shoot.
Is that a 45 Colt?
I think so, but I believe you don't want to shoot heavy loads through them. It's kind of underpowered.
Yeah.
Compared to today's ammo. It'll still kill you, but it seemed pretty light in the hand. But it's also a very heavy metal gun. But
yeah.
Easy to shoot, but it's kind of impractical.
Yeah.
Because it's 200 years old. I mean, the 1911's 100 years old, but over 100 years old now. That's also evolved a lot from what it originally was. So.
Yeah, I just like to go shoot a cylinder and then do the reload process, because that reload process is really interesting because it's not, it doesn't pop open and the cylinder's there. You have to
flip out cylinder where you just pink it out and put your 6 back in. No,
you gotta open that little thing in the back, and then you gotta go and spin it each time.
Yeah, it's kind of got a cantilever on the front. Yeah.
Because I always you always see those guns. There's like the extra tube, and it's like, what's that extra tube for? It's like, that's the ejector.
Yeah, machine tolerances were a little loose back in the 1870s.
Well, I looked into it, was like, what was something cool we could do together? And I looked into at least it's in Vegas, but they have like they have all these shooting packages where you can shoot all these different guns. They have like, Counter-Strike. They have video game ones like Counter-Strike, shoot all the guns from Counter-Strike, and like World War II ones and stuff like that. But like, it's way too expensive. Like, you can shoot like 4 World War II guns for like $200, and it's like 1 clip each, and then you're done.
Yeah.
And then like the one was like the Counter-Strike package, which seems like the most interesting one. It's like something like $600, and like you're not even getting a full clip on every gun.
Oh wow! Yeah.
It's like, here's a Glock 9mm. Here's 10 rounds. It's like, yay.
Yep. Yeah, I've heard about those places. I guess when that first started, it was cool, but now it's become like a big money insurance scam. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, the thing I would like to do, but like, because it seems like how they set this up, it would just be like, oh, somebody loaded the rifle, you go up to a table, you fire it, and you're done. You go to the next table, which would be
Yeah.
boring as shit. Like, what I want to do is like, I want to like get the rifle, like disassemble it, reassemble it, fire at least 2 magazines,
yeah,
clean the thing, and then on to the next try.
that would be interesting. So I want to know everything about how this works. A lot of those old guns are really simple too.
Yeah. And I was looking at Mosin Nagants
Yeah,
because I saw some videos of that. Because like apparently, like, they're really well made rifles, but they're really cheap too. Like you can get them for like $200.
yeah. They're just
There's like a company that's called like Mosin Crate or something like that, where like you could just buy a crate and you'll get a random Mosin Nagant in the mail, essentially. And they fire like it's like 7.62R, which is like it's like a weird round, but it's like I don't know if you can buy them new, but like or if it's just like surplus rounds going around. But apparently they're pretty cheap too, so it's like apparently a very affordable gun to just go wild with.
oh yeah.
And you get a
Yeah.
bayonet, yeah,
I think they made probably 20 million of them.
yeah.
A bunch of those. Russians used to use those sniper rifles.
Yep, it's the one in Enemy at the Gates.
Oh, is that the one? Okay,
Yeah.
I knew they had those weird. They put a very weird scope perch on it, and they're always fiddling with them because they always get knocked out of line. Sometimes after every shot.
That's also one that the guy, the White Death, used. That like Norwegian, I think it's a Norwegian sniper that killed like the most people in the world. Okay, yeah, okay. Always screwing up the Scandinavian, or what are we supposed to call them? I told you that, now I forget. You know,
I
it's-
get mad.
yeah, they want the Norse countries. I think that's it. Yeah, Norse.
Oh, speaking of which, Grayson's football team got a new member,
Yeah.
a foreign exchange student from Norway, and he wants to play football. Like 6'7". He weighs as much as Grayson. You know the tall alien in Close Encounters? That
Yeah.
came out? Yeah, this is what this kid looks like. He's going to be a kicker. They're
Yeah.
not going to put him on the line or
Yeah.
anything.
You should be playing basketball, but no. We'll have you kick.
No, he said, what did he say? He basically said soccer is not interesting and football looks really cool. And he wasn't, they don't have a uniform for him because they played their first game yesterday and they won. So they don't have a uniform for him yet, and he missed a lot of the summer camps. I mean, they're just going to let him, do a few things.
Yeah.
Mainly out, but he was
Send him back broken.
He was at the game last night with the guys on the side, and he said, "Oh, this is really exciting," because him and Grayson talk a lot. Because this kid was shocked that Grayson knew so much about what happened to Norway in World War II, and how they fought up north. And it's like this kid was amazed. Like almost nobody knows about that. And Grayson's like, "Yeah, I like history, and I know where Norway is. I could find it on the map." So they talk a lot. But yeah, he said he can't believe how incredibly complicated this game is. In soccer, there's different things you do, but essentially you're running back and forth and passing a ball. Because in football, he's like, you guys are doing crazy shit. There's like 3 people coordinating different things simultaneously, and Grayson's like, yeah, that's how you play football.
It's confusing, and then people get hurt. That's football.
Yeah. A lot of people got hurt on the other team last night. A lot of kids down on the field. But it was a good game, and they won. The 2-hour car ride was a little excessive.
Oh, it was an away game?
Oh, yeah, it was super away. Very far. I was up north of Flint. It was almost in Saginaw. I don't know why they matched this team. Because they matched the teams to the sizes of the schools.
Oh, they don't have like a conference?
Well, it's called the Huron League.
Oh, okay.
play in, and it's generally smaller size schools. And this one was, I mean, it was so excessive that they chartered buses to take the kids up there. They didn't want to use the school buses because it was just such a pain in the ass. And then after the game, people asked the coach, it's like, can we just take our kids home? So we don't, because the kids that are out of district, like Grayson, like we would have to drive all the way back to Milan to pick him up. And so they're like, yeah, because you never ever get to take them home after the games. That's out of the question. But this time, they're like, yeah, go ahead, fine.
Fuck, don't lose a kid. Oh God.
I'll lose one. But then they had to go in today to do all the stuff they normally do after the game. But yeah, they won. And they didn't win as well as they thought they would, so it was kind of like, well, we're going to put this behind them. It's where this counts in the win category. We're going to try to get some of the mistakes that were made and move on. So, but that's for his first game in the varsity. He actually got to go in, for quite a few things. So that's good.
Yeah.
But just enough that I'm happy. He's not completely benched, but he's not like there were kids laying on the ground, kids screaming, people running around trying to fix knees and shoulders. Oh my God. Because we were like down near the front, and sometimes you hear these guys come together, and you're like, what the fuck? It's because there was some running place where they just literally the kid thought he was going to cut through, and somebody just grabbed him and slammed him. This kid went from running at a full gait just to being forced into the ground in like a second. Of course, he didn't get up right away. He just laid there for a little while.
But he held on to the ball.
He did. There were a few that didn't. There was some fumbles. There was some fumble action. But like I said, a lot of kids on the other team limping off the field. I don't know what the difference was, but I don't know. I think there's some technique to that I may be missing. I just watch it. I'm just a passenger in the whole thing. Yep. Let's see who's there. Who are they playing this Friday? This Friday's St. Mary's. That's a tough team. All the Catholic schools are really tough football teams. So I don't know why that is.
They got God and money behind them.
Oh yeah, that could be. And also, they're usually the best school in town, so the parents, they can kind of pick. It's like, yeah, let that kid in. He looks like he could run.
I think like the Catholic school and the conference here, it's that's where all the rich kids go. So like everybody just has money to throw at this pastime. We're gonna get our kids all the drugs they need to grow up.
I watch I have a high school football blog I go on now it covers all the leagues and all the players. I like the scary places, like they're the #1 team in the state, like Cass Tech in Detroit. They have pictures of these kids. It's like, these look like college football players. When you watch replays of the games, these kids are so fast and so violent. It's like, this doesn't look like high school football anymore. But there's like 3 or 4 teams here that bounce around. They're the big schools. They're the #1 teams in the state. And you just watch the videos on this blog. It's like, these don't look like teenagers. I mean, some of them do. But then some of these guys are like, holy shit. The school down the road from us, Belleville's #1 in the state right now. But that's one of those giant schools. 5,000 kids go to it or something.
Yeah. Get your pick of bodies.
Yeah, it's like where Grayson goes to school. It's like, you want to play, you're on the team. Not a lot of people that want to do it. A lot of kids don't want to do it. They just don't do it. Half the kids that played with Grayson last year didn't play this year. That really surprised me because everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves. But
I don't know. Yeah, I think especially after the concussion stuff, there might be less fervency for football in general.
I don't know. It sort of got weird, and then it seemed to come back because they have more people on the team this year than they have in a while.
Yeah. I'm just talking about from my perspective, and with professional football, I don't know about high school football. Just go down to Texas, so you get go down to Texas high school football is basically college football down there. That's where you get the real temperature on football in America.
You love football in Texas.
I'm fucking yeah. Did you ever watch Friday Night Lights?
Yeah. Oh, me and Grayson watched a lot of those movies, trying to understand this because I need him to explain this stuff to me because I know nothing about sports.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about football. That's the only one that interests me, and it interested me even before he was involved in it. But it's like when I ask him about like when they call those plays and I think he was the halfback this when he played this time. That's like the defense's quarterback. So they tell him, and he tells everyone where to go, whether it's right, left, center. You're trying to guess where the other guys are coming. And I was like, how do you keep track of all that? And it's like there's only a few things I have to know when they call it. Because it's not like the quarterback that has to know all kinds of shit and improvise when people don't do what they're supposed to.
Yeah, I know mostly about football from playing the Madden games, but I haven't played them in quite a while. But I basically know all the stuff.
Well, they were doing this weird thing. They did it twice, where they had the receivers like they would almost crisscross.
Yeah.
And then he would tip the ball to another guy. He wouldn't pass it. He would just like take it and throw it. That always fucked the other team up. That was almost always a touchdown because they'd be going for the two receivers, and this guy'd be way over here. And he just tips him the ball. I was like, "What's that called?" Grayson said, "A good way to fumble and have the other team run it back on you." But sometimes it works.
Yeah, there's
cool.
yeah, that's in it's pretty easy. Well, easy, but especially in high school, if you just misdirection is not that hard because it's like if you just get everybody if everyone's job is like they're just looking at the ball and then they try to chase the ball, but then they get misdirected and like, oh, we're chasing somebody who has no ball.
I like the thing he was telling me about and I'm assuming these aren't secrets, so I'm just going to talk about it. They try to get one of the clock killing techniques is you try to trick the other team through your calls into getting off sides, because you'll tell everyone, like whatever they say they're going to go. I forget what they use different words, but they'll say it a certain way and they'll say it twice, but they try to get the other team to go when they say it the first time. Then they'll get offside penalty 5 yards.
Yeah.
They did that like 3 times. Like, oh, yeah, I guess that's frustrating, but yeah, I can see where that would work.
Well, I remember when I was in middle school when we played football, and the thing Dad told me to do that really fucked up the other team is we did a thing called, well, I'm not sure if it's actually called this, it was called cross blocking.
Yeah.
So basically, like, you teach kids how to play football. It's like, okay, you're on the line. You just hit the kid in front of you and keep him from getting to the quarterback. So what we do is, like, me and the guy next to me, we would cross and go after the guys. I'd go after his guy, and he'd go after my guy, which completely confused the hell out of them.
Like, what are they doing? Are they doing something special?
Because they go to try to hit me. I move out of the way. He's already off balance. The other guy comes over and basically just pushes him on the ground. And then same thing for the other guy.
Yeah. That's yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's fun to watch as long as the kids get something out of it.
Yeah.
As everyone goes home with their brains intact, it's a good night. I had a guy catch one one-handed. That was pretty cool. In the end zone. I think it was for a touchdown. Like, I didn't think that was going to work. He just stuck one hand up there and grabbed it out of the air. But then you can really get a feel when you're actually there and you're like 10 feet away from the field. You can really tell. It's like, oh, people are getting tired as shit. Because they really start to drag quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of downtime, but then it's like every 30 seconds, 100% of all your energy into something.
Yep. Especially those guys that play like a lot. You can tell they like by the fourth quarter they've had it. That's usually when Grayson goes in, is top of the fourth. but he's a lot better this year at being where he's supposed to be. So that's good. Looks like this is only his second year doing this, so in his life, he's never done this before. So I think it's pretty cool. I'm not as intense as some of the people are.
Not yelling at the other children for sucking.
I made some comment once. I was talking to one of the parents or something, and I was like, "Yeah, he's out there. He's having fun. He's learning some things about life that maybe I couldn't teach him." I said, "There's no vicarious living going on here, though. This isn't recapturing anything for me." He said, "A lot of my youth was spent running around reading Edgar Allan Poe and Lord of the Rings. Not have a corresponding experience. Oh, and I was lighting shit on fire too. That's my life." So.
Hey, you're on a couple championship baseball teams, weren't you?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I played baseball a lot. I don't remember being particularly good at it, but I think it was fun.
I fucking hated baseball. I just thought I had to do it. Like, I didn't know like there was a choice in it.
This must happen.
Basketball was my true passion because that was the one I picked up, and it was like, oh, hey, we can play. No one taught me fucking anything. I just, collected basketball cards and watched basketball and played basketball.
Yep. Well, I was talking more of my teenage years. Yeah, teenage years I didn't do. Once I got into high school, I didn't do any sports things. It's just me and J.R.R. Tolkien. and Ernest Hemingway.
Oh, yeah.
So that was my high school jam. What's Grayson reading now, though? Oh, I gave Grayson a copy of Paradise Lost. Read that. So that's what we're doing right now. Literature-wise. Solzhenitsyn, he kind of lost interest in that. After the Gulag Archipelago, it wasn't as fun for him. Because I have like the Red Wheel and all that shit. That gets pretty dense. Speaking of dense, I finished reading a book that I started talking about last week, which I was about halfway through when I talked about it, and I thought that would be the most interesting part, and I was wrong. The most interesting part was after they laid out the facts of what happened during Able Archer. They then talked about how our leaders reacted to what happened, how much we didn't know until the late 90s about how scared the Russians were, and how it changed a lot of Ronald Reagan's perceptions of the Russians. I mean, one of the biggest problems with Ronald Reagan and the Russians, besides his loud vitriol, calling them evil and stuff, which is not a way to get people to the table to talk to you, but their leaders kept dying on him because he was president for 3 Soviet premiers. Andropov, Chernyenko, and then Gorbachev, who's still alive, by the way. Putin hasn't killed him yet, but yeah, that's. But it was interesting because the CIA didn't talk about that for a long time because that was something else they missed the boat on. Was how shook up the Russians were about that. And it took them years to come to the peace with the fact that we screwed that up. We should have known better. But essentially, it's a good history of that part of the Cold War. It's very dense. Some people considered it boring. I enjoyed it.
Just say the title again. I don't think we got that.
Oh, it's 1983. Reagan, Andropov, and a World on the Brink by Taylor Downing. It's a British book, so it's one of those British histories which are surprisingly dense for the page count. There's a lot of information packed in there, but it's a part of the Cold War. Like if you're a fan of the TV show The Americans, and you like studying the Cold War in general, and especially the Soviet stuff, it's an interesting book. And it shows how things evolve and change, and how misunderstandings can, when you have large quantities of nuclear weapons pointed at each other, misunderstandings, or you've got to be pretty clear about what you're doing. But it doesn't seem like it was intended to be an aggressive exercise against the Russians. It was just an exercise that was maybe a little more realistic than what we'd done in the past, but it was for training purposes. Like, nobody involved with it said, oh, we wanted to tweak the Russians, because the Russians put their nuclear forces on the highest state of alert they'd ever been on since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Why didn't you say?
Go ahead.
Didn't you say something like, "Whoa!" Like we changed something specifically that the Russians were like watching as like a point of concern?
Well, what we did in Able Archer 83, which was just a small part of a whole group of exercises called Reforger. This was just Able Archer was the nuclear response portion of it. And what they used to do is they actually had the leaders of the countries rehearse what it would be like to launch a nuclear weapon. So they would actually like have Reagan on the phone and he would read his numbers or whatever their processes were. They'd have the British do it and the other countries in NATO that had, mainly us and the British. But what they didn't do this time, because they thought it would be too provocative, was actually have the leaders do it. They had people play roles. Like someone would pretend to be Reagan, someone would pretend to be Thatcher. This is all just drills done over a radio. But what happened was the leaders, like Reagan, Thatcher, all those people, they wanted to make sure, like they were on cameras, like Thatcher's like, I'm going to Chequers this weekend, and Reagan's going to Japan to visit our armed forces there. And the Russians were so paranoid, they interpreted it as like their leaders are leaving their capitals. This means they're actually going to do it. And then another thing they did was a lot of times when we had NATO exercises, they would broadcast. They wouldn't broadcast in the clear, but they would broadcast on frequencies that we were pretty sure the Russians had broken our codes for, so they could sort of follow along. And we said all along, this is a drill. But when they went to the nuclear launch portion of it, they came up with a new frequency because we didn't want Russians, Soviets to know anything about what our procedures may or may not be. So they immediately hit the scramble on that, and that drove the fucking Soviets crazy. It's like, oh, this is when they nuke us, because they're switching to secret frequencies. They've never done this in an exercise before, so there's a lot of misunderstanding.
This is the nuclear flea flicker.
Yes. But that was it's an interesting book. Talked a lot about Reagan, some of Reagan's policies, a lot of stuff about Thatcher I didn't know, because Reagan and Thatcher weren't quite the best of buds that a lot of people thought. I mean, they respected each other, but they were leaders of different countries with very different goals, and I didn't realize how angry the NATO allies were when they had that first summit in Helsinki, when Gorbachev when he sort of knew the Soviet Union was going to go bankrupt, and he said, "What about if we got rid of all the nuclear weapons?" And Reagan they talked for a minute, and they're like, "Yeah, we can do that. Are you serious?" And it's like, this would save us billions of dollars. And the Gorbachev, they went back and forth, and because see, one of the sticking points, because they almost got a 75% reduction in arsenals, that they were real close to that, but the sticking point with Reagan was always SDI, because he wasn't going to give that up, and because Gorbachev said, you can't keep doing SDI. Why, even if we disarm, because the Russians always thought once we'd perfected SDI, we would just annihilate them, because they couldn't retaliate, because we'd shoot all their missiles down. And so they wanted that to stop too. But some of the intelligence that leaked out of the Gorbachev-Reagan summit was that Gorbachev put it on the table that I want to get rid of all the nuclear weapons, and Reagan said, "Yeah, we can talk about that. I would consider that." And like Thatcher went crazy. It's like, dude, they're gonna fuck us. They're just gonna leave us wide open for the Russians to roll in here with all their tanks. And I didn't know there was that kind of acrimony. But then they talked to Thatcher later and assured her, it's like, there's no way Gorbachev's serious. The only thing the Russians have are all their nuclear weapons. they're basically a third world country without those. They're never going to give those up. So there was, but I didn't expect that. When I heard that, I was like, oh, that's new. I hadn't heard that one before. Even the people in Germany were pissed off. They're like, oh, we're just dead. They're just going to roll in. If we don't have American nuclear weapons here, they're just going to roll in and take everything. So it's hard to imagine. That like seems like another world. Sometimes when you read these histories, it's like, oh, people felt very differently back then. And then it talked too a lot about the collapse of the Soviet Union and how America was really hands off with that whole thing until they started to realize it's like, oh, wait a minute, they're just leaving all these nuclear weapons everywhere. We got to know where it is. So then we got more involved because Bush didn't trust, because after Reagan term was up and Bush was president, he didn't want to even talk to the Russians. He's like, I don't want to hear any Gorbachev's bullshit. I've seen these Russians come and go. You can't trust any of these guys. And so we just sort of let that crumble in on itself and didn't really talk a lot. And then when we realized, wait a minute, they're going to leave these vast nuclear arsenals in the Ukraine and all these other countries, like we better get a handle around this before these start showing up on the black market. Because these people have 400 multi-megaton nuclear missiles and no potatoes. It's too hard to figure out where this shit's going to wind up and who's going to buy it. So, but yeah, it was a cool book. It's a dense book, though. If you're really not interested in that era and that kind of history, you're not going to find anything. There's no Tom Clancy stuff here where it's like, oh, exciting and an interesting thing. It's like this is a real history, but it's packed with shit. Most of it I already knew, but there's some new things there. I mean, if you've read The Dead Hand, you've pretty much get the last part of this book. So. Yeah, check it out if you're into that. If not, then just keep
keep being blind to the world.
Bang Theory and
oh, we can't. It's the last season.
Oh no. Is that going to be the end of television?
Yeah, Big Bang Theory.
That when it all goes under. Or 2.5 Men. That's another one. People's like, you should watch this. This is real funny. Okay, put it on. Let's see this. Like, if this is what America's going crazy about. Do you know who Bill Hicks is? You ever listen to shit like that? That's funny. This isn't funny.
I mean, it's funny. It's just stupid and inconsequential.
Not my kind of humor, I guess.
I think there's a while I watched some Big Bang Theory, and then I read an article where people explaining, and I don't know, the article like made more sense. It was like way more interesting because it's basically explaining how like the people watching the show aren't nerds, and all it is about how they're laughing at nerds. Because like the people laughing, like it's laughing at the punchline of the punchline is basically they say something like Apple computers and everyone starts laughing because the punchline is they're a fucking nerd. It's not like an actual joke that's worth a shit. It's like, oh yeah, you're right.
Okay. So it's like watching a show where you don't like the protagonist.
Yes.
Them. Okay, that's weird. Probably happened more than once. Okay. Let's talk about Deadpool 2 because you watched it and I probably will someday.
Yeah, did you watch and like the first Deadpool?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Yeah, this probably less charming because they actually have a budget this time around.
Oh, okay.
I've heard like one of my favorite scenes from the first Deadpool is where he has like this, this bag of guns, and he's just like talking about all the things he's gonna do, and then when he gets to the big fight, he's like, "No, my bag of guns is in the taxi cab." Oh shit! So basically, it's like this big action scene never happens because they don't have the money to afford it.
That's clever.
So in this one they have the money, so they just do the big action scenes, which is still fun but different.
How's Josh Brolin in this?
He's good, but like he's a very serious character, so he's like kind of out of place. But that's how he's supposed to be.
Oh, all right.
Because his character is like a very serious, it's like his mom's Jean Grey and his dad's Cyclops, and he comes from the future. And
Okay.
he's like, and like in the future, there's like some sort of sentinel virus that will like turn people into sentinels. Will turn mutants into sentinels. So he has like half his body's like metal, but like he has like some sort of antidote that's keeping him from like turning full into a sentinel. But he's like slowly turning into a sentinel. But he has all this metal shit on him and stuff like that. And he also has an eye that can explode. Wait, no, that's Bishop. He's got like a scar on his eye or something like that. And he always has giant guns. So that's kind of his character. So it's like a weird pairing because he's very much an X-Men character, and then but he does have, there are comic books of like, you know, Deadpool and Cable. So there is a precedent for it. It's also a lot more serious than I thought it would be. Like there's some like pretty emotional things that happen in this movie.
Oh, okay.
And so that's an interesting through line. The helicopter parachuting scene is probably my favorite. I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but like a bunch of crazy nonsense happens. I don't know. Did you see the trailer?
Yeah, I know there's some guy that just shows up,
Yeah,
doesn't have any abilities, but he's like, I just want to be on the team.
yeah. Yeah, there's also another dialogue. This is like, they're like, you have type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Yep, I got them all. But there's like a part where I think that so they're like recruiting a team of people, and one of them's just called like the Vanisher.
Uh-huh.
And like, you know, so like they look at things like the Vanisher, and he's like, "Oh, you're good." Like, and then like the other guy's like, "I think you just showed up late." I don't. And so you never see him, and then like when they're in the helicopter, there's this point where like they have their team together, and he mentions the Vanisher again, but you never see the guy there, and he's like, "Is he here or not?" And then you see him jumping out of the helicopter, and you see somebody just like toss a parachute out. It's like, so is that the guy, or are they just like pretending that's the guy? They just tossed a parachute out of the fucking helicopter. And then another character, like she does get a whole lot. She gets like maybe half the movie. She's really cool, called Domino. And her superpower is that she's lucky.
Oh, okay.
So like a lot of things she just does, it's like a Rube Goldberg of things, just like avoiding killing her, or almost killing her, and killing other people instead of her. So it's a lot of interesting things that happen, or just her narrowly avoiding thing, and not really because she intended to. It's just, you know, luck is going her way.
Huh. So it's a pretty good movie, huh?
Yeah, they retread on a lot of jokes and from the first movie, but yeah, I'd say it's worth watching. I bought it on Amazon, and I think I watched the unrated version. I'm not sure. They don't do like they haven't figured out how to do like digital versions of like DVD stuff yet. So the file is just a 4-hour, like, it's just 4 hours of Deadpool and you don't know which version you're watching. So I fast forward to the second version, assuming that was the unrated version, but I have no idea. But yeah, watch Deadpool 2.
I'll do that.
I'm not sure if it has a subtitle or not. I think it's just Deadpool 2.
Doesn't seem like it.
I'm not sure if there's gonna be a third one. Till you get to like, huh?
It's in development.
But yeah, you get to the end credit sequence, and it's like, oh, well, I guess they can do whatever they want then, huh?
Just make this up as you go along.
Well, once they introduce time travel, you know,
Yeah, that's true. You can pretty much do it all then.
oh yeah, there's a bunch of jokes with there's a bunch of Wolverine jokes. That's pretty fun. Like I think there's some part. This will ruin one of the jokes from the end credit sequence, but he goes back in time to like the first Wolverine movie.
Okay.
Where like Deadpool like turns into a weird character with no mouth and like has like arm knives and fires lasers from his eyes.
Okay, I think I remember that.
And like everybody talks about how that was like a horrible thing, and he like travels back in time to that movie to kill himself, and then like it's all right, I did you a favor. This was stupid.
Funny. Funny that they acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Some people just be like, I just forget about the bad stuff we did 10 years ago. No, Ford, embrace it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of all the because I was talking about all the mediocre movies I watched. I'm trying to think of all the ones, but all I can think of the major one was Baywatch.
Okay, how was that?
Not good, but also just okay. It's watchable.
Was that meant to be silly or serious? Or
Yeah, it wants to tread on that 21 Jump Street thing of like let's kind of do a serious movie, but not take it seriously at all. But yeah, it's very 21 Jump Street. The Rock's fine in it, but it's just not that funny. Zac Efron's in it. It's like, so it's just occasionally funny, but nothing's not really. It's kind of just dick and fart humor most of the time.
Good.
There's a weird relationship between there's the nerdy guy who tries out for Baywatch, and like he gets in just because he keeps trying.
Yeah.
And there's like a weird
funk.
Yeah. And they have CJ. They have this new girl who's basically supposed to replace Pamela Anderson. And there's a part where like he gets a boner, and then he jumps on a park bench to he's choking on like a hot dog, and then she gives him the Heimlich maneuver, and he gets a boner from that. And then to hide his boner, he like jumps on a bench or something, and then he gets his dick stuck in the bench. And then he's like, everything's okay. And then he's just waiting until she goes away. And then he's like talking to his friend, and his friend is Hannibal Buress, who just gets randomly killed in the midway through this movie and fed to sharks.
Okay.
A lot of Hannibal Buress just showing up in mediocre movies, and he's the best thing. He was also in Tag.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. He's one of the 4, I think it's 4 kids. Yeah, or 5, I guess, if you include what's his name? Hawkeye, that guy.
Oh,
Jeremy Renner.
Yeah, Renner. Yeah.
So then he's like trying to like whisper to Hannibal Buress, like, you got to help me out here. He's like, I didn't do anything. And at some point, like, CJ's there. She just ducked down. He's like, all right, we're gonna get you out of this situation. So she's just like all into it. It's like, it's okay. You got your dick stuck in a bench. But yeah, they end up together at the end of the movie. So yeah, whatever.
Huh.
It works out. And The Rock gets fired, and then goes and sells cell phones, and then David Hasselhoff goes to like talk him back into Baywatch, and Baywatch is like solving some drug crime on the beach. That's always kind of the constant joke that's kind of funny, is that they talk about all the things that Baywatch isn't responsible for, and like police and detectives are supposed to be doing, but it's they're wasting all their time to solve a giant drug cartel conspiracy.
That's funny.
But yeah, it's watchable, so whatever.
Okay.
Don't watch it or watch it.
Made some money, so I'm looking at
Oh, did it? Okay, I thought it didn't do that well, because I remember it got horrible reviews. So
yeah, it did get horrible views.
Yeah, someone's talking about that. I think it was the Red Letter Media guys. They're talking about how, because they did a review of Predator, and they're talking about how Arnold Schwarzenegger isn't a great actor, but he's in a lot of great movies.
Yeah.
And then they're comparing him to The Rock, who's like, The Rock's actually a good actor, but he's in so many terrible movies, but he has so much charisma, people don't care.
Yeah, The Rock has a lot of charisma. So, what was the Amazon thing you watched?
Oh, The Marvelous Ms. Maisel.
Okay.
Which is I think it takes place in 1958. There's a weird passage of time where I think like 3 years passes by, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
She's just a housewife and Jewish housewife. You know, it's a Jewish family.
Okay.
Tony Shalhoub plays her father, who looks like Walt Disney in this.
Okay, that's interesting.
They live in an apartment, like in the same apartment complex as their parents, so then, you know, they can just like hand their kids off to the parents.
Oh, okay.
And you know, she's been married a while. They have 2 kids, and you know, kind of like one of their pastime things is that her husband goes out and does stand-up comedy, and usually he gets, you know, shit gigs and everything, but she like takes notes, sees what people react to, and then at some point, like she, you know, they listen to I'm not sure what the talk show during that time would be, Ed Sullivan or something at that time, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But Bob Newhart is on there and he's doing one of his routines, and she's like, Bob Newhart stole your routine. He's like, oh no honey, that's his routine, like I took it from him. And she's like, oh really? He's like, yeah, everybody does it, you know, people starting out, you gotta start somewhere. So he's
Somebody else's stuff.
and then he gets like nervous about something, gets like really nervous and self-conscious about it, and basically admits that he's been having an affair. And then she gets drunk one night because like basically her life's falling apart, and then she'd bake a brisket to get for the guy who would run the slots at the to give the time slots away at the comedy club. Or I guess not really a comedy club, it's like a what do you call that, like an art venue or whatever, like anybody, it's like, you know, anything, it's like beatniks, it's a poetry slam,
Slam poetry / get up here and talk.
yeah, but there's also stand-up comedy in there. And so she gets drunk, goes back, decides she's going to pick up the, you know, the pot that she, you know, gave her, that she baked her brisket in. She's going to go get her pot back.
Okay.
And then so while she's waiting to get the pot back, she just, somebody leaves the stage and she just goes up on there drunk and then starts talking to the audience and making them laugh. And then you have, oh shit, what's her name? She's on Mad TV. She plays Lois on Family Guy.
Oh, I can't think of her name. I used to know it. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, you'll look at it. Fine.
Woman with that voice, yeah.
And so she sees her up on stage, like she's just talking off the top of her head. She doesn't have a routine or anything, so it's, you know, it's original. And she sees the audience reaction. She's like, oh, she's an actual comic. Like, we need to support this. And then at some point, during the routine, she's like talking about how like why her husband would leave her, and then she just like whips out her tits to like, you know, like, look at these, like, yeah, I'm not even wearing a bra, they just hold themselves up. And that's when the cops come in.
The Legion of Decency.
So they take her off stage, and then shit, what's that? It's Borstein, something Borstein.
Alex.
Yes. So she comes up there and she's like trying to tell the cops like, oh, she didn't know, she doesn't know the rules. She didn't know because like she could be able to whip her tits out had she had a cabaret license or whatever.
Oh.
Okay. But because she didn't, so then she goes to jail for a night, and she gets bailed out by Lenny Bruce. So Lenny Bruce is kind of a character in the background in this series.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
And then and so from there, Alex Borstein is trying to get her to do more comedy. You know, she splits with her husband, but they don't get divorced. And both parents are trying to convince them to get back together, but just because, you know, it's a woman in the 50s. Like, what's she gonna do when she's all alone?
Right? Yeah, she should die on the streets.
So then she's back living with her parents, and then she decides she needs to get a job, but not just like do stand-up comedy for a job. She goes and gets like a retail job, but then in that night, that's when she does the stand-up comedy, and she doesn't tell anybody in her family that she's doing this. It's just kind of like something she does. It's pretty good. Like, yeah, I'd recommend watching it.
Okay, well, I can watch.
I'm trying to like, I'm not sure if I should like describe the arcs or anything of that, but yeah, the second season's about to come out. It's pretty good, I'd say. Watch it.
Oh, okay.
Although I don't know, like, you know, it's like trying to imagine, like, okay, is this something I'm supposed to laugh at, or is this something like a 1950s audience is supposed to laugh at?
Yeah, I'm supposed to laugh at this ironically.
But she does a lot of vulgar stuff because at some point she gets put in jail again, just for vulgarity. Like she does a routine, it's just vulgarity. So yeah, that's when she uses Lenny Bruce's lawyer to like get out of these things. She goes up to the judge, and she basically he's like, why isn't your husband here to like to talk for you?
Where's your leash?
But yeah, it's late 50s, and I think it might be like I want to, because there's a weird time thing I'm not sure about, because I think like at some point like almost like 3 years goes by, but I don't think so. Like I think only like a year goes by, but it's like, oh yeah, I wasn't paying attention to the time, because there's some things where holidays happen, but like I wasn't necessarily paying attention to like how it was unfolding. But
all right, we'll check it out. The Marvelous Miss Maisel.
yeah, Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime, get it. Support that company.
Make it so Jeff Bezos can sit on his money all the way to the moon.
Yeah. Scrooge McDuck that shit. Oh, man. Excuse me, I am tired. So we watched a movie this week.
Well, a couple weeks ago, but we'll do it for this. I didn't rewatch it, so I probably lost all of them.
No, it was, yeah, the memorable parts of it were remembered, I'm sure. We watched The World, the Flesh, and the Devil, 1959, which we both agreed seemed like a really long Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
Same production values, good script, interesting actors, but just it's like, this is the prototype for the Twilight Zone?
Oh, did this predate the Twilight Zone?
Yeah, 1959, yeah, I think.
Oh, okay. Is there any production crossover? Anybody that worked on that? This worked on that?
I looked at some of this weird movies this old, you don't get like complete stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't find anything. But it was a 1959 film starring Harry Belafonte, Inger Stevens, and Mel Ferrer, who I believe was the father, the guy from I can't think of it now. But anyway, really the famous actor in this is Harry Belafonte.
Yeah.
And in this movie, he is he works in some kind of mine.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a mine cave-in, and he's trapped, and it's basically him talking to himself and talking on the radio, and people are digging for him and digging for him and digging for him, and then the digging stops. And he hammers on pipes and tries to communicate with people, so nothing happens. So he manages to climb out the rest of the way out of the...
Doesn't he get like trapped by a pipe while it starts flooding with oil or some shit?
Something like that.
And then he manages his way out.
Yeah, he slicks his way out of it. And then he comes up to a world that's empty. And there's newspapers around that give very vague descriptions of what's going on. Essentially, like, they used atomic dust to kill everyone.
Oh, is that...
It was something weird, because it wasn't like nuclear bombs, which would just flatten everything. It was like an irradiated dust that had a really short lifespan, but it would kill everyone. And because in this movie, it's a dead world, there's no bodies anywhere.
Yeah, no bodies.
Which is like just a way to, it's really just a vehicle for the story. So
yeah.
I remember this in 1959, so Harry Belafonte, who's a black guy in real life, even though in this he looks kind of like a Cuban in this one, but
yeah,
he's a black guy, and he's in New York City, and he kind of sets up his own Omega Man, palace of where he hooks up generators and stuff and occupies a building.
Also very I Actually, when does the book come out? Shit. What was the vampire movie with Will Smith?
Oh, yeah, that's Omega Man was based on that too. I Am Legend.
Yeah. Does I Am Legend predate this?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because I do know he wrote Twilight Zone episodes. The author of that wrote Twilight Zone episodes.
Yeah, this book was written as The Purple Cloud, based on M.P.
Oh, it
Shell.
was based on a book. Okay, I didn't see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, this book was written in 1901.
Huh.
It's done. It's The Purple Cloud, but it's really, again, it's just a story about. It's a way to drive characters together,
Yeah.
because then he meets.
But yeah, he builds up he has like a storefront of mannequins that he talks to because he's lonely, so he just has to create characters for
going
himself.
crazy. And then you see find out there's a woman in the city. She's hiding and watching him. Her name's Sarah, and she hides for a long time. And then when he finally goes nuts and pushes one of the mannequins off the roof, she thinks it's a real person and screams. So he comes running down. It's like, hey, come back, come back. But then, so eventually they start hanging out. But they're very conservative in this world. Because she like wants a relationship with him, and he's like, no, that wouldn't be right, not yet, because they actually live in separate giant empty apartment buildings for a long time.
He does a lot of like electrical work and water work and all this stuff.
Yeah,
and she's very surprised that a black man knows how to do all these things.
Yeah, because one of the big underpinnings of this movie is the tension, the racial tension that's not mentioned except when he finally decides, he's like, hey, look, this isn't going to work, I'm black, you're white, and it's like, I'm glad at the end of the world when everyone else is dead we can be friends. How fucked up is that? what he says, he doesn't say it like that, but,
Yeah.
which is really sad, because you hear that and you stop and think about it, and you're like, oh, that's right, like these two in that world would have had nothing to do with one another if everyone hadn't died. He's angry about that. It makes sense. And so there's a lot of tension with them, and of course, because she's alone, and they kind of live this weird life where they're.
And she has one day she just drives by the car and she just has this like, "What's shopping? I got some things for you."
Yeah. They try to be domestic, but there's always tension there, and he's the real conservative one. He's not being aggressive. She almost is.
Yeah.
Which is a kind of a unique turn. Usually it's the guy that's like, oh, woman, well, I know what I need to do. But not in this case. He's a very decent man. And kind of feels a lot of pressure even then. Then, so they're fighting and hanging out. They're down by the docks somewhere in New York, and then here comes a boat. And it's got another guy in it. What's his name? Benson? What's the guy?
Not sure.
But anyway, they find another survivor, and he's a white guy, because the race stuff runs through this movie, and of course he naturally assumes it's like, well, okay, I'm here, you're here, she's here, there's going to be a new order. But he doesn't really seem like a dick at first. He seems very grateful for them saving his life, because he was basically chained to this boat because it was the only way he could stay awake and pilot it long enough to get back from wherever he was. But then once he's better, he's like, okay, this is the natural order. Why don't you go along and
It's Ralph, Sarah, and Benson.
Yeah, Benson, that's his name. I had a weird name like Benson Thacker or something. But
Yeah.
Benson.
Yeah, Benson Thacker.
Thacker, okay.
Sounds like he has two last names.
Yeah. So these two eventually, Ben pretty much wants him to hit the road, and of course he doesn't want to go, and Sarah doesn't want him to go, doesn't want Ralph to go, and then there's some kind of weird shootout where they hunt each other through New York, and no one can hit anything. There's a lot of shooting going on, but no hitting anything.
I was going to mention they do a pretty good job of making an empty New York as best they can.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. It is.
But it's also like a lower skyline New York, so it's not the New York you're used to.
Yeah, this is 50s New York.
But and there was some shots where they go. Like, I'm not sure if they actually had a bunch of abandoned cars or if it was just some, what do you call that? Fucking
mock-ups.
oh, what's the plate thing? Why do I forget the effect? Matte painting of a bunch of cars and stuff like that. But yeah, they just shoot like early in the morning just to get the stuff because like, it's we'll do it as soon as the sun hits. Like start shooting because before people start coming through here. Now you probably can't even do that.
No, probably. Well, I know when the guy did which one was it? 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like astounding that he got those shots of Piccadilly being empty.
Yeah.
That's one of the most densely populated places in Europe, and those were really like iconic shots. But that they also paid people money and did a lot of other things to keep people in 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
I don't know about, but yeah, there was some cool camera work in this movie, and you really got a sense of emptiness.
Yeah.
And also kind of interesting solutions to things, because remember when he was done making dinner, he just threw all the dishes out the window. That it's like in 23 years those dishes will rise up to the level I'm at, based on how many I use. And she's like, why don't you just wash them? And it's like, do you know how hard it is to pump water up here? You know, it's just all this really kind of practical.
It was another thing where he's like, he was hauling all the water up there and then he just found out the plumbing works because she just turned the water on.
Yeah,
oh, wait, no, there was a water tower in the on top of the building. The water came out, yeah.
Yeah, that's how they maintain water pressure from those buildings. It's the water tanks in the top. I learned that because of that weird girl who killed herself in that hotel in Los Angeles, and they found her body in the water tank.
Yeah.
On top, and it's like, oh, people have been taking showers and stuff for days, and there's a rotting corpse in it. But anyway, yeah, that was a lot of nifty stuff in here.
Yeah,
very 60s vibe to it too, kind of that whole Mad. If you like Mad Men, you'll like this movie. All the shit looks the same, even though this is 59. But.
And isn't the title is like some sort of Bible quote? I'm not sure what the full quote is. But...
Oh, not sure. That's a good one.
Because there's actually like a lot of things that use that as like a title. The World, the Devil, and the Flesh.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh. No, I can't find any reference to that anymore.
Did you watch any extras on this? Because I didn't watch any extras.
I watched some of them. It was mainly like production stuff, and then there was an interview with Belafonte, who's still alive, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, 91. Still doing it. Yeah, there was an interview with him, and he made $350,000 to be in this movie in 1959.
Huh.
A lot of money.
And of course, this movie flopped, right? It didn't make. I don't think it made. I thought, like, I read something that it didn't make a lot of money, and people blamed it for its being too political.
Yeah. Yeah, lost about $1.5 million. Yeah, it was seen as kind of a controversial movie for its time because it talked about things like, big things going on in America with race and stuff like that. And
yeah, because I'd never heard of this before until I just looked up in the Criterion Collection. So I wonder when this kind of boomerang back around as like, hey, you should watch this. But and I've never seen it because it's a fairly tame movie, but I've never seen it like anywhere on cable or anything like that. But this might be too old for for stuff like that unless you're watching like Turner Classic Movies or something.
yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure when. I had never heard of this movie before. This seems like one of those movies that you would like watch directly. Like, oh, this looks cool. I'm gonna watch this, but it doesn't seem like something they'd run on TV a lot.
Yeah. No, it was not like necessarily like cool action or anything, but
No. Just kind of a story about people.
and did like was it Z for Zachariah? Didn't that do like had a similar story? But that one was actually just specifically a nuclear holocaust or whatever. And that wasn't a city. That was like a small town where just everybody left, and then it's just like this girl left in this town, right?
Yeah, because that was the one with the guy from Children of Men in it, right?
I never saw the movie. I read the book.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because there's the guy from Star Trek, Captain Kirk, and the guy from Children of Men.
Oh, Chris Pine and
they were guys in the
Viggo
movie.
Mortensen. Oh no, Clive.
No, it was, it's the guy, the black guy, the leader of the fish.
Oh.
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Oh yes.
And then Margot Robbie was the girl.
Huh.
How do I know that name?
She's fucking Harley Quinn.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that came out in 2015. The Z for Zachariah. I haven't read the book, but it looks like the same thing. And all that weird. Movies that are compared to this. Here's a weird one from New Zealand. I always like The Quiet Earth.
Is that the one where the guy just like wakes up and the world's gone?
Yeah, because we were in the U.S. We were figuring out a way to refuel bombers with energy, and we created something, and like everyone in the world, I forget what happened.
Is that more like an interdimensional thing or something?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
something like that. But I don't. It's a weird movie, but it was a cool movie, and it was from New Zealand, which is like that's an odd. You need to know any of the actors, and everything looked kind of weird.
Also, if you like this, and if you want a comedic turn, I do recommend highly Last Man on Earth.
Okay.
Which is very similar to this too, but just way more goofy.
Now, did that get canceled?
Yeah, it got canceled. It's a sad day.
Yeah, I heard the ending of that was supposed to be real dark and fucked up.
Oh yeah, probably. I mean, it's already dark and fucked up, but it's still really funny.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can't beat a guy just sitting in a pool of tequila getting drunk.
Yeah.
Because he's bored. He's driving around an RV and he has a Tyrannosaurus Rex head in there just because he took it from like a New York museum just because he could.
Yep. There's nothing to stop him.
There's no plumbing, so he just cuts a hole in a diving board in a pool.
Oh God, yuck. In the pool, huh? Yep. So this is this movie falls into kind of the post-apocalyptic genre.
Yeah. Sci-fi,
The
post-apocalyptic.
actress in this she was 19.
Huh.
She made this movie, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Looked a lot older than that, but was also Swedish,
Oh.
or Swedish in America. So yeah, she born in Sweden, grew up here. She was in some Twilight Zone episodes.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Forget which one, but I recognized the actress. It's like, oh yeah, it's her. Wow, she died really young too. She died at 30.
Huh.
1970, she was 30. Acute barbiturate poisoning. Oh yeah, that'll get you.
Gotta stay thin.
Oh yeah. But that's I'm trying to. The guy, he wasn't who I thought he was. So. I mean, these were kind of like just stock actors around at that time.
Yeah, I tried looking at the director, but this isn't really the time of like auteur directors. So I think this guy was just kind of like a for-hire guy or something. But
yeah, that's what it looks like. Well, he was president of the Writers Guild for a while. So.
Yes, I don't know. Because I want to say like he was the spearhead behind this, but I don't actually know. Like maybe it was the producer or something. I'm not sure. who really spearheaded this project to get made.
Yeah, like I said, the information was a little thin, and the extras were just basically like, we had a black guy in the movies. And he was the lead actor, and it was allowed. It seemed to be like the vibe I got from the extras. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's it probably wasn't the selling point then, but it's the selling point now. It's like, oh, you don't realize this just didn't happen back then. You're like, it doesn't really happen now, but sure. Although Black Panther is like the third highest grossing movie of all time now, or something, or at least in America. So
I can believe that.
made like $700 million.
Wow. I need to see that. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, it's not as good as everyone says it is, but it's still a good movie.
Yeah. That's what the people do to assuage their guilt for voting for Trump. So prove I'm not a racist.
Although I think it's Ryan Coogler. I think that's who directed it. I basically I support whatever he does. He's a good director. He did that Creed movie, which was really good, and then so this was his first superhero movie, which is still pretty decent.
I support the guy who directed Ragnarok. His weirdness. Let him do the next whatever the big superhero movie is.
I remember, people are talking about him doing. I don't know what happened, but him taking up. What's his name? James Gunn taking up the role for the new Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Yeah.
I heard a lot of the actors said they wouldn't do it if James Gunn doesn't do it.
Yeah.
$25 million in front of them, and or they're gonna be like, "Hey, you want to work in this town again, kid?" Or whatever the hell they do.
Yeah, it's on production hiatus, and I know Dave, or is it Dave Bautista? Something Bautista. I believe Dave is kind of like holding out or something, and so. Although he's probably like one of the, there's a lot of stuff to get passed around in Infinity War, so there's a lot of characters, so not everybody gets a lot of time, but the time he gets in the movie, he practically steals the movie.
Oh well, yeah, that's the character in that guy.
And it's pretty much just the same shtick he's been doing in every movie.
Yeah,
it's just his misunderstanding of how emotions work and stuff.
Feeling and stuff like that. Yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah,
I mean everything's in production. What did I hear the other day? Oh, Outland. They want to reboot.
Okay.
Like yeah.
Sure, that'd be cool.
But now I don't know.
Get Neil Blomkamp to fuck that up.
No, I forget who was going to be attached. I mean, fucking Black Hole was supposed to get a reboot.
Yeah,
and they actually spent money on
Yeah, wasn't like David Fincher gonna direct that shit?
Something like that. They spent a lot of money on some pre-production stuff, and then Disney's just like, no, we got the Star Wars thing. We got to fuck this up.
Yeah, I was looking at the numbers because they're how they're balking out all the Star Wars stuff because Solo bombed. It's still the third highest grossing movie this year.
Yeah, this bomb, this terrible piece of shit.
We made $350 million in America. It's horrible.
Nobody wants to see it. Well, somebody does. Yeah, we'll see. Outland reboot with Neil Blomkamp. Now, what's Neil Blomkamp doing?
He's doing some Alien prequel thing. Oh no, not prequel. Reboot or sequel? Sequel, prequel.
That got canceled.
Oh, he's working on something.
Cause I know he was doing something because he did his internet thing for a while on YouTube.
He's got some big remake he's doing. I thought that was one of them. He's got like 8,000 remake he's working on. Oh, RoboCop returns. That's announced. It's not
Oh,
not
okay.
necessarily like in production. Yeah, it looks like it doesn't have anything in production right now.
Oh, okay.
Or it says Greenland pre-production, but that still doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Nothing means anything until the little the in the parentheses it says post-production, and even then it's not a guarantee.
Yeah. Even then, it could sit on the shelf.
Just look at that fucking Man of La Mancha movie. It's like that's just, oh, we got it made. Oh, now we'll get a release.
Outland. What's Kevin Smith doing? He could do the Outland reboot.
He's doing some Star Wars thing.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah, but he put out some tweet that says, I can't believe the amount of money people are giving me to do something with a property like that. But then I found it like there's some Star Wars show that he's working on or something. Or not like a Star Wars show, but like a Star Wars like talk show or something like that. But I'm not sure if that's what he was talking about. But Kevin Smith, if you've followed him at all, you know like how many things he has been put in pre-production, or it's like, yeah, this is getting made, and how many scripts he's written that have never gotten made. It's like it's almost hundreds of things that he's been almost made. Like he was supposed to make that the biggest movie he's supposed to make. He's supposed to make that Green Hornet movie, and then he just like kind of didn't believe in himself to be given that much money or to make it, and then fucking what's that director? He like uses all like paper mache and Swedish like version.
Oh. Anderson something.
No, shit was it? I'll look it up real quick. Yeah, I think he did like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I believe that's him. Michael Gondry.
Okay.
Or Michelle Gondry. Yeah, I think it's Michelle. He does movies like that.
All right.
Like, yeah, he used to be, yeah, he directed those White Stripes videos. Oh, yeah. Oh, he's doing that new TV show with Jim Carrey. It looks fucking crazy.
What's Jim Carrey doing?
It's called Kidding.
Okay.
And he kind of it's like a desperate Mr. Rogers, and then it's like he's going crazy, and like all the puppets he works with are like invading his real life and like giving him hand jobs and shit.
Jesus, okay. I guess that Happy Time Murders movie's not very good.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping it would be.
Yeah.
After watching that trailer, I was like, oh, fuck, this is going to be great. But
yeah, I got like 32% on Rotten Tomatoes, but
I guess if people say it's just not funny, it's just kind of depressing more than anything. They say Melissa McCarthy walks around, looks like she's trying to figure out who farted.
All the jokes were in the trailer.
Yep, that's it.
You're good. You saw the trailer? You're good. I'll have to watch that at some point just to, just to be like, yeah, they made it. They did it wrong, but they made it. We could have had puppets back in movies again. That still doesn't happen. Like they made that new Muppets movie, and I want to say that was good, and I want to say it did okay, but there's not a bunch of Muppet shit coming around.
It's kind of like, we did it. Okay, what are we doing next?
All right, let's go get the CGI superhero movies back out.
Yep, let's get more of those going. What would you consider the Isle of Dogs or whatever?
What?
Puppets, or was that claymation?
That's it's stop motion animation, I believe.
Okay.
But I think it also incorporates different styles of animation, but I think it's mostly stop motion. Because there is animation and just straight up animation in it too, but it's a combination of things.
Well, all right. Well, do we have anything else?
Nope.
All right. This week's the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon. Goodbye, America.